Every single day, as you go about your life, breathing deeply, reaching for a snack, pouring a glass of water, or simply wandering through your home, unseen particles are making their way into your body. These are microplastics, fragments of plastic less than 5 millimeters in size, and their even smaller cousins, nanoplastics. Together, they form an invisible tide that surrounds us, infiltrating the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink. But this isn't just an environmental issue. In 2024, research revealed a sobering truth. Microplastics aren't just everywhere around us. They're embedded within us, buried deep in our organs, quietly rewriting the narrative of our health. How do these tiny invaders slip past the body's formidable defenses? The answer is both simple and alarming. Microplastics enter primarily through ingestion and inhalation. Every sip of tap or bottled water, every bite of seafood, even the dust that settles in your home, each is a potential vehicle for these particles. Their minute size allows them to cross biological barriers once thought impenetrable. Nanoplastics, smaller than a single red blood cell, can move seamlessly through the wall of your intestines, penetrate your lung tissue, and even cross the protective blood-brain barrier. They hitch rides on plasma proteins, infiltrating every organ system within minutes. In short, the world's plastic pollution crisis has become an intimate biological threat. Recent studies have brought this threat into sharp focus. In a landmark autopsy study conducted in the Netherlands, microplastics were found in every single organ examined, from the heart and brain to the testes. These weren't factory workers or people with unique exposures, just ordinary individuals. And the consequences aren't abstract or far off. The damage starts almost immediately. For example, research published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2024 found that patients with microplastics in their arterial plaques had a 4.5-fold higher risk of heart attack, stroke, or death within less than 3 years compared to those without. This means that plastic exposure translates directly into measurable, life-threatening injury, beginning not decades from now, but within hours and days. Let's start with the brain, the seat of your thoughts, memories, and personality. Nanoplastics are particularly insidious here. Because they are so small, they utilize the cell's own transport mechanisms to cross the blood-brain barrier, a process called clathrin-mediated endocytosis. Once inside, they trigger the brain's immune cells, the microglia, into a state of chronic inflammation. Over time, this leads to patterns of protein clumping seen in neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Post-mortem studies have shown that people with dementia have far higher levels of microplastics in their brains than those without. Even among young people, higher microplastic loads are linked to slower cognitive reaction times and lower performance on tests. And animal studies suggest microplastic exposure may alter behavior and even increase autism-like symptoms, highlighting the profound neurotoxic potential of these pollutants. Next, consider your heart and blood vessels, the lifelines of your body. Microplastics in the bloodstream act like tiny shards, scratching and inflaming the delicate lining of your arteries. The immune system tries to engulf and remove these foreign bodies, but instead, it ends up creating hard, calcified plaques. These plaques are the primary cause of heart attack and stroke. The 2024 study followed hundreds of patients with carotid artery plaques and found that microplastics within these plaques made them dramatically more dangerous, accelerating the process from silent buildup to deadly rupture. In other words, microplastics are not passive passengers. They actively transform your arteries, raising your risk of cardiovascular disaster. The threat doesn't end there. Microplastics also invade the reproductive organs. In a study of placentas, 100% of samples contained plastic fragments. That means exposure begins before birth, as developing fetuses are bathed in a soup of microscopic plastic particles. Animal studies reinforce these risks, showing that microplastics can reduce sperm counts, thin uterine linings, and disrupt hormone production. Sertoli cells, which nurture developing sperm, are particularly vulnerable. The result is lower fertility, increased risk of developmental disorders, and potential long-term impacts on future generations. These findings are echoed in human biopsies, and the links between microplastics and thyroid disease in children are now under active investigation. In the liver and kidneys, your body's filtration and detoxification hubs, the story is equally grim. The liver encounters microplastics almost immediately as it filters blood. The result? Oxidative stress, cell damage, and a rise in fatty degeneration or steatosis. Over the last 3 decades, the concentration of microplastics in human liver tissue has increased in lockstep with global plastic production. In the kidneys, microplastics can scar the delicate glomeruli, leading to reduced filtration capacity and early signs of chronic kidney disease. The gut, meanwhile, is both an entry point and a battleground. Microplastics shred the mucus layer that protects your intestines, allowing bacteria and food antigens to leak into the bloodstream. This leaky gut drives chronic inflammation and disrupts the microbiome, the vast community of beneficial bacteria that support digestion, immunity, and mental health. The immune system's response to microplastics is a tale of deception and exhaustion. These particles don't just trigger inflammation. They act as sponges, soaking up toxins, heavy metals, and bacterial fragments from the environment. When immune cells attack, they are not just fighting plastic, they are fighting plastic loaded with poisons. Over time, this chronic battle depletes regulatory T cells, tipping the balance toward autoimmunity. Regions downwind of plastic recycling plants show higher rates of inflammatory bowel disease, even after accounting for other risk factors. Microplastics are not only a foreign invader, they are a Trojan horse, delivering a cocktail of environmental hazards straight into your tissues. What's most alarming is the speed and acceleration of this crisis. Blood levels of microplastics are doubling every 6 to 7 years, mirroring the relentless rise of global plastic waste. If this trend continues, microplastic concentrations in human blood may reach toxic thresholds within a generation. Each day, every microdose adds up, compounding the risk much like interest on a loan. The diseases we fear, neurodegenerative disorders, heart attacks, infertility, autoimmune conditions, are being propelled not just by genetics or lifestyle, but by the silent accumulation of plastic within us. But there are steps you can take, starting today. Experts recommend reducing single-use plastics, choosing glass or stainless steel for food and drinks, and avoiding heating food in plastic containers. Filter your tap water, opt for minimally processed foods, and select natural fibers for clothing and home textiles. HEPA-filtered vacuuming can dramatically cut indoor microplastic exposure. These changes aren't about perfection, they're about progress. Studies show that blood levels of microplastics can drop within weeks of changing habits. Microplastics are a global problem that has become deeply personal. They are woven into the very fabric of our bodies, shaping our health in ways we are only beginning to understand. The science is evolving rapidly, but the message is clear. This is not a distant threat. It is happening now, inside us all. By making simple changes, you can reclaim a measure of control, protecting your organs, your future, and the generations yet to come. Start today with one small action and join the movement to push back against the plastic age. Your body and your future will thank you.